Hello, ladies. We've all been there, standing at the edge, tired, frustrated, ready to walk away. But here's the truth. You might be one conversation, one act of patience, one moment of understanding away from seeing the man you always hoped he could be. Sometimes frustration, disappointment, or repeated misunderstandings can push you to the edge, ready to walk away from a man you once believed in. But before you give up, pause. Look deeper. Because sometimes what you see is not the whole story. Before you make a decision about walking away, ask yourself, have you truly listened to the story behind his actions? People often show you the surface, the mistakes, the habits, the flaws. But what you don't see are the layers of experiences, childhood memories, silent battles, and private fears that have shaped him into the man he is today. Maybe he grew up in an environment where love was rarely expressed in words, so now he struggles to say what's in his heart. Maybe he's carrying unspoken burdens, financial pressures, family responsibilities, or past wounds that still bleed in silence. Sometimes the reasons behind his behavior are not excuses, but explanations that could help you understand his choices. Before you judge the man standing in front of you, try to see the boy he once was, the battles he's fought alone, and the lessons life has forced him to learn. You might discover that his actions are not a reflection of how little he cares, but of how much he's been trying with the tools he knows. Grasa. A man's growth is rarely a straight upward path. It's a journey filled with detours, wrong turns, moments of clarity, and times of stumbling in the dark. Change doesn't happen in an instant. It's built slowly, layer by layer, through experiences, lessons, and sometimes painful self-reflection. When you plant a seed, you don't see results the next day. You water it, give it sunlight, protect it from harm, and wait. The same is true for a man trying to grow into the best version of himself. Patience is not just about waiting. It's about how you choose to wait. If you wait with frustration and constant criticism, you suffocate the growth. But if you wait with encouragement, understanding, and belief in his potential, you give him the strength to keep trying. Men often carry silent pressure to become a perfect overnight. And when they fall short, they may retreat, feeling they've already failed in your eyes. But real transformation takes time. It requires space to make mistakes, learn from them, and try again without fear of being abandoned at the first sign of imperfection. Sometimes the man you wish he could be is already inside him. He just needs enough time, support, and faith to let that version of himself break through the surface and Udi. It's easy to see a man's errors and label him by them, to say, this is who he is based on a bad decision, a poor choice of words, or a moment of weakness. But the truth is, mistakes are part of being human. No one escapes them, and no one grows without them. The real measure of a man is not in whether he stumbles, but in whether he gets up again, determined to do better. Some mistakes are loud and obvious. Others are quiet but heavy, carried like stones in the heart. A man who owns his faults, who reflects on them instead of running from them, is already showing strength. It takes courage to admit, I was wrong, and even more courage to take steps to repair the damage. You see, failure can break a man, or it can rebuild him. Sometimes the version of him that emerges after a mistake is wiser, more grounded, and more aware of the consequences of his action. But this transformation only happens if he's given the chance. The room to stand back up without being permanently defined by his lowest moments. When you judge a man solely by his mistakes, you freeze him in a moment he may already be working hard to outgrow. But when you see his effort to rise, to learn, and to make things right, you witness something far more valuable than perfection. You witness resilience. Not every man is fluent in emotional expression. Some men find it easy to speak their love, their gratitude, and their affection, while others struggle to put those feelings into words. For some, it's not because they don't feel deeply. It's because they were never taught how to express what's in their hearts. But love has many languages, and words are only one of them. Sometimes the truth is spoken in the quiet things he does. Fixing something without being asked. Making sure you get home safe. Remembering the little details you didn't even know you'd shared. These moments may seem small, but they're often where a man's love is the loudest. A man may not always say, "I appreciate you." He'll stand in your corner when the world turns against you. He might not often say, "I love you," but he'll work long hours, endure discomfort, or sacrifice his own comfort just so you can have what you need. These silent acts aren't accidents. They're intentional signals that you matter to him. It's easy to overlook these actions because they don't come wrapped in grand speeches or poetic declarations. But if you watch closely, you'll see that his consistency, his presence, and his willingness to show up even when it's hard are often louder than any words he could ever speak. When life weighs heavy on a man, his first instinct isn't always to talk. Sometimes it's to retreat. This withdrawal can be easily misunderstood as indifference or distance, but in reality, it's often the opposite. Many men are wired to feel they must solve problems before speaking about them. They believe their role is to protect, provide, and keep things together, even at the cost of carrying the burden alone. When the pressure builds, whether it's financial stress, work demands, family issues, or personal struggles, a man may go quiet, not because you don't matter, but because he doesn't want to unload his weight onto you until he has a solution. In his mind, love sometimes means shielding you from his stress, even if that means you feel shut out. Unfortunately, this silence can create misunderstandings. You might feel ignored, when in reality, he's deep in thought, running through plans, trying to figure out how to protect the life you share. This is his way of showing love, not through constant updates, but through the determination to come back to you with answers instead of problems. Understanding this part of a man means realizing that withdrawal isn't always rejection. It can be a sign of how seriously he takes his responsibilities. It's not the absence of love, but a different way of holding it. Every man carries an invisible backpack filled with the expectations of the world. To be strong, to provide, to never show weakness, to always have answers. When the expectations from the people closest to him are added to that weight, it can either lift him higher or break him down, depending on how they're placed upon his shoulders. When expectations are expressed as belief, "I know you can handle this," but trust your decisions, "I believe in your ability," they become fuel. They spark drive, determination, and the inner fire to rise to the occasion. A man who feels trusted often pushes himself harder, not out of fear, but out of pride in meeting the faith placed in him. But when expectations are laced with constant criticism, comparison, or disappointment, they don't motivate. They suffocate. They make him feel as though no matter what he does, it will never be enough. This can lead to a quiet kind of defeat, where he begins to stop trying, not because he doesn't care, but because he feels he's already lost in your eyes. The way you carry your expectations toward him matters. Lift them like a banner he can march under, not a burden he's forced to drag. The right kind of expectation can transform him into a stronger, more determined version of himself. The wrong kind can cause him to shrink into someone who no longer believes in his own worth. Every man carries a vision of the life he wants to build. A dream that fuels him when he's tired. A goal that keeps him moving forward even when life feels heavy. It might be a career he's chasing, a skill he's mastering, a business he wants to start, or simply the life he wants to provide for the people he loves. These dreams are not just hobbies or fantasies. They're tied directly to his identity, his sense of purpose, and his self-worth. When the person he loves believes in those dreams, it changes everything. Support isn't just about words. It's in the small ways you show him you're paying attention, that you value what he's working toward. When you encourage him, when you remind him of his potential during his low moments, you're not just helping him chase a dream. You're helping him believe in himself. On the other hand, when his dreams are dismissed, laughed at, or treated as unrealistic, it cuts deep. It's not just about the goal being doubted. It's about him being doubted. That kind of dismissal can plant seeds of insecurity that make him question whether he's capable of achieving anything at all. A man will often fight harder for his dreams when he knows someone is in his corner, cheering him on. And that support, especially from someone he deeply values, can be the difference between giving up too soon and pushing through until he makes it. When you meet a man, you're not just meeting the person he is today. You're meeting the sum of his experiences, both good and bad. And sometimes the pain he's been through long before you arrived still shapes how he loves, how he trusts, and how he reacts. Those old wounds may not be visible, but they are real, and they can stand between you and the closeness you desire. That perhaps he's been betrayed by someone he once trusted completely. Maybe he's poured himself into a relationship in the past, only to have it fall apart despite his efforts. Or perhaps life itself has taught him that vulnerability comes with a cost he's not sure he can pay again. These experiences can leave scars that don't fade easily, and in his mind, those scars are reminders to protect himself. The walls he builds are not always meant to keep you out. Sometimes they're there to keep him safe from repeating the pain. You may feel frustrated, wishing he'd just open up, let you in, and trust you fully. But breaking down those walls takes time, consistency, and proof that this time is different. That you're not here to add to the hurt, but to help heal it. Patience in this process is everything. Every time you show him that you're steady, that you mean what you say, that you won't use his vulnerabilities against him, a brick in that wall loosens. Over time, you may find that the man behind those walls is far more tender, loving, and open than you imagined. He just needed to feel safe enough to show it. It's easy to point out what a man is doing wrong. It's much harder and far more powerful to guide him toward doing it right without breaking his spirit. Criticism, when given without care, can chip away at a man's confidence and make him defensive, withdrawn, or even resentful. Over time, constant fault-finding can create a wall between you, where he stops hearing the words and only feels the sting. But when your feedback comes with belief in his ability to improve, it changes the entire dynamic. Instead of feeling attacked, he feels supported. Instead of shutting down, he becomes more willing to listen, learn, and grow. Constructive encouragement is about choosing your words in a way that uplifts while still being honest, showing him not just what went wrong, but also the potential you see in him to make it right. A man who feels safe to fail without being shamed will try harder to succeed. He'll open up more, take more risks, and put in more effort when he knows that mistakes won't immediately erase the good he's done. Encouragement is like water to his roots. It doesn't ignore the weeds, but it helps the whole plant grow stronger. When you replace sharp criticism with steady, respectful guidance, you don't just correct the behavior, you build trust. And trust is the foundation that makes all other forms of growth possible. It's easy to see a man's flaws and decide they define him. But the truth is, everyone has weaknesses. Some that can be changed, and some that are simply part of who they are. The real question isn't whether a man is perfect, but whether he's willing to acknowledge his shortcomings and put in the effort to grow beyond them. A weakness by itself doesn't determine the future of a relationship. What matters most is whether he's trying. Is he listening when concerns are brought up? Is he making small but noticeable steps toward becoming better? Is he showing consistency in his effort, even when progress is slow? Those are the signs that you're dealing with someone who values the relationship enough to work on himself. It's also important to remember that growth doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's hidden in small changes. Being more patient in moments of frustration, communicating instead of shutting down, taking responsibility where he once made excuses. Because these shifts may not seem monumental at first, but over time, they add up to real transformation. On the other hand, a man who refuses to grow, who ignores the impact of his actions, or who consistently dismisses your concerns, sends a very different message. But if he's showing up, trying and pushing against his own limitations, that effort itself is a powerful green flag. It shows not just love for you, but respect for himself and for the life he's building. There are moments when a man seems to pull away, creating a gap you can't quite explain. It's natural to wonder if the love is fading, if something you did pushed him away, or if his heart is somewhere else. But often, that distance is not about rejection at all. It's about him trying to shield you from the weight he's carrying. Many men are taught from a young age to handle it on their own, to bear their burdens quietly and to never show the depth of their struggles. When something heavy is pressing on his mind, financial pressure, career setbacks, family problems, or personal failures, his instinct may be to retreat into himself, not because he wants space from you, but because he doesn't want to place that weight on your shoulders. Weight on your shoulders. In his mind, pulling away can feel like a form of protection. He thinks, if I keep this to myself, I'll spare her the stress. I'll figure it out, and then I'll come back stronger. But the unintended consequence is that you may interpret that silence as emotional distance, when in truth, it's his way of loving you in the only way he knows how at that moment. The key is understanding that this type of distance is often a shield, not a wall. And when a man feels that someone believes in him even when he's at his lowest, it can ignite a transformation far more powerful than pressure or ultimatums ever could. The choice to wait, to encourage, to see beyond the present moment can be the very thing that turns struggle into strength and keeps a connection alive long enough to become something extraordinary. Wow. Before you give up on a man, remember, love is not built in the easy moments, but in the patience, grace, and faith you show when things are hard. People are always changing, learning, and becoming. The man you see today is still a work in progress, just as you are. If you can hold on a little longer, listen a little deeper, and believe a little stronger, you might not just save the relationship, you might witness the best version of him yet.